I dressed this morning in a pair of brightly colored pants with embroidered sailboats on them for this drive. Why, you might think? Well, because we're going out for a ride in a little boat, a barchetta. It's a very, very interesting thing when a manufacturer, whether it be Ferrari, Porsche, whoever it might be, revives a revered name. It's something that is fraught with risk when the marketing people go shopping through the old names, because then the engineers and designers have to come up with something that is up to the task. And of course, barchetta, Ferrari barchetta, are two words that immediately conjure up the legendary early days of the marque. And the Ferrari 212 Export barchetta, with coachwork by Touring Superleggera, was the first car to bring a win at Le Mans for Ferrari in 1949, and is a legend by any measure in the car world. So, what is it in relation to this Ferrari 550 Maranello barchetta by Pininfarina? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Thinking about Ferrari making the decision to use the name barchetta for the open version of the 550 Maranello is perhaps not as out of place as it might seem. After all, the 550 Maranello represented a bit of back to the future for Ferrari. After a few generations of mid-engined V12 cars and flat 12 cars, the 550 in 1996 was the first front-engine V12 GT car from Ferrari since the legendary Daytona. So the 550 Maranello was both eagerly awaited and also somewhat given a really heady task. Could it be the equal of the great Daytona? And did people really want to go back when they had seen the mid-engine future and present? And the answer is a resounding yes. The car was received very, very well both by the press and by enthusiasts and buyers, because it really did feel like we were back in the glory days of the 1960s and 70s with great beautiful Pininfarina designed front-engine GT cars. There is nothing quite like the look of a Pininfarina designed Ferrari GT car. The quintessential long hood, short deck look, and just the sensuously curving flanks. It's something quite special. Now, getting back to this particular car, the barchetta, originally the 212 Export, was a completely open roadster. No side windows, no top certainly. A real open racing car for the road. Now, this 550 Maranello barchetta is certainly no racing car, but it does follow its predecessor in the fact that it is a completely open, fair weather car. The car has no top whatsoever. Of course, it does have side windows, but it's got no top whatsoever. The only concession to the weather is an emergency cover that you can put onto the windshield header to the rear fenders to protect the interior in case it rains. Otherwise, it's you and the elements, with the strengthened windshield frame and these roll hoops to protect you in case things get ugly. This is a really open car. Interestingly enough, it actually has more luggage space than the 550 Maranello Coupe because of its configuration, but that's not really a practical application because no one's going to take a car with no roof on a long trip, luggage or no luggage. But it's got these great, very form-fitting sport seats, and being in an open car, of course, also gives you the opportunity to hear the car better. And this really shines. A front-engined V12 manual shift with that wonderful Ferrari gate, this is pretty spectacular. I don't know what Luigi Chinetti, who drove almost all of that 1949 24-hour Le Mans by himself in the 212 Export Barchetta, would think of this car, but he certainly had a more comfortable time of those 22 or so hours that he drove if he was driving this. And of course, remembering the great advances in performance, the 212 Barchetta had amazing performance for its time, thanks to a great power to weight ratio, which of course, for me, counts for everything. Pure power is great, but when you can get great performance out of a small engine, transform that with great roll holding and all the other aspects you need, durability, to make a real winner, it's spectacular. The 550 Barchetta was also a limited production car. They only built 448 of them, which seems an odd number. They had actually planned, apparently, so the story goes, to build 444. But they realized that 444 was unlucky in the Japanese market, and they were depending on the Japanese market to sell a number of these cars. So they thought, well, let's not jinx ourselves by doing that. Let's just build another 4 and we'll have done with it. And even at the speeds at which we can drive this Barchetta, it's still a very responsive car. It has something that some more modern supercars don't have, and I keep coming back to this, is the thing that really excites me about a car is the connection with the car. Perhaps because it's so open, the steering is very direct, these seats are very form-fitting and very comfortable. You really do feel as if you and the car, to use a cliched phrase, are as one. And that's something that you really need to have in a car like this, which is designed for pure fun. This is not a practical car at all. You don't buy this car because you want to go shopping for groceries. By contemporary standards, the 550 Barchetta doesn't have a lot of power. I believe it's 480 horsepower that's producing, but it's all quite usable horsepower. Cruising around in the rev range in the 4,000 RPM area, it's still pretty lively. It really wants to get up into 5,000 and 6,000 is really where it screams. If this is a great afternoon or weekend fun car, I wish my afternoons lasted for about 12 hours, because that would be a really terrific thing. You know, I know that it's expected in a modern Ferrari to have the beautiful leather and the Alcantara and the carbon fiber bits, but somehow I think it would have been even nicer if the designers had taken this special edition car back to a more basic specification, sort of a metal finished dash, so that we really thought about the 212 Barchetta. And I mean, even to the leather cover for the fire extinguisher. I mean, the car is as tailored and bespoke as you'd expect any modern Ferrari to be. Of course, one of the features of any modern sports car is the option to drive in everyday mode or in sport mode. And by pressing one little lever on the dash, the 550 Barchetta transforms itself from a very capable boulevardier into a really roaring car. This is not quite a little boat. It feels more like a luxury speedboat. And there's nothing wrong with that, because after all, this is a car from the 2000s and not a car from the 1940s. That it's not from the 1940s, my kidneys are thanking me. But I just think that the spirit of Luigi Chinetti would be fairly reasonably happy with the iteration of this car, and without drawing tons of hateful responses from Porsche lovers everywhere, I'd argue that perhaps the 550 Barchetta is a little closer in feeling to the 212 than the 911 Speedster might be. But We're going to take the 911 Speedster out soon, and I'll be able to comment directly on that. In the meantime, I'm enjoying my time here by the ocean in this little boat. If you like these videos, let your friends know. Subscribe, comment, share.